And our guest on this week's show is Jim Lee from Slade. During the early 1970s, Slade were one of the country's biggest bands, releasing 14 albums and having 6 number-one singles, and selling over 6.5 million records. But what have the band from Wolverhampton Walsall got to do with Birmingham music scene? Well, before they were called Slade, they were originally called the In-Betweens and then Ambrose Slade. Between 1965 and 1969, the band were very active in Birmingham, playing gigs at places like the Macadam, Handsworth Plaza, and supporting Birmingham bands such as The Move, Spencer Davis Group and the Moody Blues. And the band were very much part of Birmingham music scene in the 1960s. And I'm very pleased to welcome onto the show Jim Lee. Welcome, Jim.
Thank you. We went in there with this record producer, Kim Fowley from America. He spotted us playing at Tiles Club. And so in we went, and they rolled the tape, and then we were walking out again. That was it. That was the result. But unfortunately, there was a chap in around our area who was in a band called the Tennessee Teens, who then changed their name to Listen, and the singer was named Robert Plant. And his band, Listen, recorded it as well. And theirs was way better than ours. You know, it was a real big production. You got brass, and I felt a bit humiliated, to be quite honest.
Well, we mentioned at the start on the intro that you were very active in Birmingham in the mid-60s.
Yes.
Do you remember many of the gigs and the period?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes we'd headline. We certainly played the Metro twice. Too loud. Always the problem. Everybody played there, but we couldn't play. Too loud. Always too loud. So we couldn't do those type of places. We never played the Rum Runner. We played the Macadam, the Swan at Yardley, and others, Erdington, Queen's Head. Oh, we were resident there.
So you've just mentioned Kim Foley. He was responsible for getting you onto Columbia, and you recorded 4 or 5 songs.
Yes.
The one that I really like.
They were all B-sides.
The one I like is a track called Delighted to See You.
Oh, my God. We needed a follow-up, and we had these 2 guys who were London management, Derek Block and another guy. And the song was written by a guy named Pete Dello. Honeybus was the name of the band. God, my memory's working well today. And it was a great track. And this guy, Pete Dello, when we were looking for material, he sent this track in, this Delighted to See You. So they gave us the song, but I rearranged it and made it so it kicked. And so I arranged it like that. And we went into Abbey Road. We knew 2 of the Beatles were in there. And I remember the Beatles, all I could hear coming out of their studio was I didn't know they were making, I thought they were just on drugs, you know, and I thought they'd really blown their career here. But what they were doing was making Strawberry Fields. It all became clear when I heard the track. And I went to the loo, we'd set the gear up, and we'd played it through. And
well, I think it's a brilliant track. Obviously, you're not a big fan of that track, Jim.
No, that's Freddie and the Dreamers. It's not us at all.
Well, we're going to move on now to signing to Fontana and Ambrose Slade. Now, I like Ambrose Slade, and I've got the album Beginnings, and I think it's a fantastic album.
Right.
You did a cover version on that album, Knocking Nails Into My House.
It's all cover versions apart from a couple of tracks. I had a little obsession, in fact, more than a little obsession, with a band that was from Birmingham area called the Idle Race, and I used to go and see them with my wife, and we did play together at the Macadam pub, and we were doing this track from their birthday party album called Knocking Nails Into My House, and you know, they were all saying, the rest of the band, we can't play that because we're on with the band. I said, no, definitely we've got to play it because we're playing with the band. You know, want to know what they think of it, you know. The Idle Race went on first, and of course they were fantastic, you know, and I loved watching them. So then we went on, and came the big moment, are we going to take this? Are we going to do it? Yeah, do it, you know. So we did it. And then after we'd been on, Jeff came into the dressing room and asked if we played, because we used to do 2 sets in those days. And Jeff said, "Excuse me, mate, will you play Knock It Into My Nails Into My House again? Because I've never heard anybody play one of my songs." And I said, "Yeah, we'll do that, you know." And I was honoured to play it. And Jeff sat down the front and sat there until we played it. Then he buggered off.
And we're pleased we've got Roger with us. Roger Spencer from the Idle Race.
How are you? Hello, Jim. How you doing?
I'm fine, mate.
Good to see you, mate. I haven't seen you for a long time. That was tremendous. I mean, the energy of the band was amazing. I mean, I remember playing with them, particularly. You mentioned the Macadam. I just thought, God, this band's amazing. They really were very tight, very together. Tremendous, great. And it was a great version. Yeah. Very well recorded, very well played.
Absolutely. I think it's a fantastic track.
Yeah, it is.
I think it's a fantastic album.
Oh, well. Have you thought of going to the doctors?
Jim, be more positive, please. Good stuff, man, good stuff.
No, it's all right. It's of its time, that's all.
Yeah, that's right. Absolutely, I agree. You know, you can look back and knock stuff, but you got to start somewhere, haven't you? You know?
Yeah.
And my God, that was a good start to what a great career you had, you know.
Yeah. Chaz, our manager, who took us over when we became Ambrose Slade, and we were after material. We weren't really writing our own stuff then. That was done as you see, was done as Genesis as a backing track. And he said, put some vocals on top of that. So I wrote that on top. Don did the lyrics and I did the melody. And, you know, it got radio play, actually. Know Who You Are did. It got our nose through the door. We did one of those programs on TV, late at night, music programs with Tommy Vance. Tommy Vance got on our side. So it was, you know, like the Idle Race actually had John Peel on their side. With that record, it began to open the radio world up for us.
There was an image change as well.
Oh, yes. Did we go? We're talking about that, are we? People didn't have phones. That wasn't normal. You went to the phone box if you wanted to make a phone call. Chaz said, one of you's got to have a phone. The office will pay for it. And it was me. And he rang me up and said, I've got this idea. There's these things called the Bother Boys who are out on the streets these days, and they're getting press. He said, well, Jimi Hendrix had his hairdo, the Beatles had their hairdos. I said, you what? You know, we're not going to become skinheads. So anyway, I told the others, and I said, no way am I going to do it. And so he rang me up again. He said he wanted us to go to London. And we went down there. Little did we know that the car was waiting outside to take us for our haircuts. But I was dead against it. You know, I said, no way am I. And Nod and Don went along with it. And Dave was having none of it. But Chaz said, Dave, do you want to have a couple of hits or do you want to be a millionaire? Well, Dave, of course, changed his mind immediately. The word of God, you know. And that was it. It was 3 against 1. We all had our hair cut off, and I'll tell you what, when you've had long hair and you have it cut short, it doesn't half hurt. But that night, Don got mortal drunk, and he was sick all over the place, and that's what getting your hair cut and becoming a skinhead does for you when you don't really want to do it. That was when we started to happen. We were doing live gigs, and we were going a real storm everywhere. We got this real rave-up show sorted out. And we'd started to get a smell at Radio 1, as it was in those days. And now Radio 2, of course, sounds like the old Radio 1. We were after a single, and Chaz said, look, when you finish off your show with Get Down and Get With It, it's always a massive event. And when you go off, you always get encores, and I think you ought to record that. So we went into Studio 1 at Olympic Studios. Those studios were used by the Stones, Zeppelin. The Faces were in and out. You know, we'd be crisscrossing one another. But we went into the big room where they do the orchestras, and suddenly we felt at home with the recording studio. It was like a gig. So we set up the gear, and we played Get Down and Get With It as if live. And it was down in 2 seconds, of course. But the thing we hadn't realised was that over the years, we got louder and louder and louder. And in the 60s and the 70s, there wasn't foldback or earpieces like you have now. And we didn't realise that Nod's voice had completely changed into this raucous scream. But it sounded sort of very abrasive. And I said to the engineer, can't you make him sound a bit more like Gene Vincent? You know, that sort of, you know, that sort of, you know, that echo on the back of it. And he said, yeah, and they had to have a tape machine running really fast, and they called it ADT. Apparently it was invented by John Lennon, and it went round really fast, so Nod's voice was coming round again really quickly, and it gave that old rock and roll sound. And suddenly, Nod's voice sounded acceptable. And this was a big moment, really, because I was writing with Don at the time, and Nod was writing with Dave. Don and I, we were coming up with a lot more material than the other two. But obviously, down the phone comes Chaz. Jimmy, we need a follow-up, like, you're writing. And I said, you know, I'll think of something. So, Nod and I used to jam in the dressing room with the violin and the guitar, and I got this idea, this lick, and you know, with the junk, 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 junk behind, and I thought, right, and so I thought I should go and do this with Nod, not with Don. And of course we got no phone, so I just turned up on his front door, drove over there, and with my violin, my wife's beating up old acoustic guitar. And I said, Nod, I've come to write a song. And he said, well, you all right with Don? And I said, well, no, I've got this song because it's like a Grappelli and Django thing. And he said, come in then. So I went in, started the riff, jink, 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 and got him to do that. And I was playing the fiddle. And 20 minutes done. And we got our first number one. We had an old piano at home. By an old piano, I mean one that was completely smashed, half smashed, and a lot of the keys were missing. And I used to come home from school and I came up with ding, 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 ding. Then that went into the next bit, and then I sang over the top. And I didn't know I was writing then, though. I was just a school kid. I was just messing about, you know.
Well, we got a couple of questions that we've put out there, and people have come back with a couple of questions that they want to ask you. And one is from Gabby Cabby, who's a friend of mine. And he says, is it true that Slade turned down the chance to represent the UK in the Eurovision Song Contest?
That's not true at all. We were asked, our manager, Chaz, came up with the idea that he asked me, do you fancy writing something for the Eurovision Song Contest? And I said, no. I said, I don't want to get involved in all that stuff. That was as far as it got.
And we got a question from Andy Noax.
It's been a real pleasure to hear all these stories. I mean, I was just a baby when you were having all your big number one hits. So the first Slade songs I really knew were the ones in your comeback in '81, with Lock Up Your Daughters and We'll Bring the House Down. Yeah. So what I was going to ask is, did the kind of different crowd, the new romantic type crowd, then obviously people like Adamant and Duran Duran in the charts, did they welcome you when you were on Top of the Pops with them, or were they kind of get off Grandad kind of thing? How was their
No, they were big fans.
Yeah.
Same with punk as well. Big fans, massive fans. Same the other way around, you know, when we used to meet McCartney or you know, people like that, you know, they were fans. And Paul McCartney said told me he was a fan. He wanted me to go around his house and write. Well, he said he wanted me to go around his house with a guitar, bring your guitar. Yeah. I wasn't going to go and write with Paul McCartney. I didn't think that would be a good idea. I was in Slade and I better stay where I am, you know.
Do you regret that, though, now?
No, not at all. No. Not at all. It's post-Beatles, nobody's, you know, that's too, none of the Beatles could follow it, never mind trying to replace, you know, so I'd be in John Lennon's shoes, wouldn't I? I didn't fancy that at all.
No, fair enough, yeah. Thank you.
Big thank you to Jim for joining us on this week's show. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.